So we worked out the major chords for all of the white notes, and then on the black notes you could do it the same way by playing the scale and then picking the first, third, and fifth notes. But that can get complicated. There's a faster way to do that, which is to relate it to the nearest natural chord. For example, C natural, C major. If we wanted to figure out what C sharp major was, it will speed it up if we know what C major is. We notice that C sharp is a half step higher. So the other notes in the chord must also be a half step higher. So everything's going to be sharped or raised one half step. So instead of C, E, and G, it'll be C sharp, E sharp, and G sharp. And notice that I called this E sharp instead of F, because the relationship needs to stay the same. We need to have, in the scale of C sharp, we need to have a note for C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. And if I called that F, we would have left out the E, right? Because we'd have C sharp, then D sharp, then F sharp, and then so on. So we would have left out the E and we would have had two notes named F. And that's not logical, and it's not allowed in music theory. So to be consistent, since we had C, E, and G, if we want to play a C sharp major scale, we call whatever the notes are that result from that sharp. So it's C sharp, E sharp, and G sharp. Similarly, if we wanted to play the D sharp major scale, well, we just figure out what the D major scale is. Because it's a white note, it's easier, it's more commonly figured out, and you'll memorize it quickly. It's D, F sharp, and A. So you raise all of those a half step. So what you get, and this is a funny one, is you get D sharp, F sharp sharp, and A sharp. And yeah, you heard that right. This one here, which we normally call G, is called F sharp sharp. And even though that sounds funny, that's correct in music theory terminology if we're figuring out what a D sharp major chord is. So it's D sharp, F sharp sharp, and A sharp. Okay, the next black one is F sharp, if we're looking at them as sharps. So from F to F sharp is a half step higher. If we know what F is, F major, it's F, A, C, then it must be F sharp, A sharp, and C sharp. Everyone raised a half step. And that's what it is. And if you work out the major scale for F sharp, you'll find out when you pick 1, 3, and 5, that's what you're getting. Same with G sharp. We figure out what G is, it's G, B, and D, and we raise everything a half step. So we get G sharp, B sharp, and D sharp. And notice on this one that I'm calling this note B sharp, even though it's actually C, normally C. In this context, if we called it C, then this note would be C sharp in the scale, and we'd have two C's and we'd have no B. So we don't do that. We call it G, B sharp, and then D sharp. And then the last black one is this one, and if we're looking at that as the sharp of A sharp, then we just figure out what the A major is. It's A, C sharp, and E. Then we raise everything a half step. So we get A sharp, and then this was C sharp, so now it's C sharp sharp. And then this was E, so now it's E sharp. And that's what A sharp sounds like. And by doing it that way, that's it from the point of view of all the tones that you can create. There are 12 individual or distinct tones on the keyboard, and we just worked through all of them. All the white ones, that's 7. All the black ones, that's 5. So the other thing to think about, though, is that, of course, these black notes, they play two roles. They can either be a sharp, like this one's C sharp, but it's also D flat. And so if you want to think of these black chords as flats, you can. It just depends on the context and who's talking or writing or whatever. So you need to understand that C sharp and D flat are the same note. They're just used in different contexts for different reasons, but they're the same note. And same thing with the chord. C sharp major is this. And D flat major is this. It's the exact same notes. And the reason is that it works, because if you use that same idea of taking the major chord and then raising everything a half step to get the sharp version of it, we'll take the next one higher and lower it all a half step. So if we want to figure out what a D flat major chord is, we start with a D major chord and lower everything one half step. So a D major chord is D, F sharp, and A. If we lower all of that a half step, then what we'll get is D flat, the F sharp will just go to F, and the A will go to A flat, because it's just lowered a half step. And so we get this. And that's right, it's D flat, F, and A flat. And the same thing applies for all of the black notes as you're going down. If you want to know what an E flat major chord is, we'll play an E major chord. That's usually easier to figure out, and you may already know it. And then just lower it one half step. So an E flat major chord would be, instead of E, G sharp, and B, it would be E flat, G, and B flat. Everything got lowered a half step from the perspective of a flat. And notice that that's the same notes we would play if we were playing a D sharp major chord. See, D sharp and E flat are the same note, and so their chords are the same. And same thing for the other three up here. I'll move a little faster, but hopefully you get the idea. If we want to know what a G flat major chord is, we play a G major and lower everything a half step, we get a G flat major. If we want to know what an A flat major chord is, we play an A major and lower everything a half step, and we get A flat major. And that, by the way, is A flat, C, and E flat. And then if we want to know what a B flat major is, well, we play a B major and lower everything a half step. So here's a B major, and here's a B flat major. And those notes are B flat, D, and F. And I think I left out G flat's notes, and they're G flat, B flat, and D flat. Because, again, real quickly, G major is G, B, D. So the flat major is G flat, B flat, and D flat. And once you can do that, you've now figured out how to play all of the major chords that you could possibly play.